We have the panel here. Just let me check if we are live or not. बस एक बार sound check कर लेना सब लोग. Yes sir, I am sending the link as soon as possible.
We need to do something about the channel visibility. We are like people do search for it, but then there's someone
Yes.
else appears. You do not appear.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you'll have to check
I'll look
about
into
it
it.
as well. Yeah.
But I think growth के साथ हो जाएगा धीरे धीरे. I have sent the link in the group itself, and I am also sharing it on my.
But that's what I'm telling you, like next time when you do something, just make sure you tag the offices of the government as well. If it is a very
Yes.
really legal
क्या बोल रहे हैं?
discussion, then it is.
Yes.
हाँ,
Yes.
नहीं म्यूट नहीं है, चालू है।
प्रत्युष तू भी म्यूट नहीं है।
नहीं म्यूट कोई नहीं है, बस कुछ हम कोई कुछ बोल नहीं रहा है
मुझे
इसमें.
अच्छा लगना है, मैं अच्छा नहीं देता.
ठीक है. Okay. I have
But
shared the
I'm
link
sleep
everywhere.
deprived. I'm
I
sleep
think people will roll in soon. As soon as they do, we'll start.
deprived. I'm sleep deprived.
Okay. Okay, we are live. I think it is streaming perfect.
मुझे सिर्फ 70% अपलोड हो रहा है.
No, that is basically कि हम सबका recording जो है वो upload होता है.
हाँ.
So I
Okay.
can make like say for example अभी शिव का कैमरा जो ऐसा आ रहा है ना pixelated.
हाँ जी.
So मान लो कि जब वो reels बनेगा तो it will be in high quality. Cause
तो
it will
मेरा
be
कैमरा
uploaded
सही आ रहा है ना.
separately.
मुझे मेरे कैमरे में तुम्हें
FPS
कोई
का
दिक्कत तो
प्रॉब्लम है
नहीं आ
लेकिन
रहा.
वो भी solve
झबुक
हो
झबुक हो रहा है
जाएगा.
कुछ.
झबुक झबुक हो रहा है because ऊपर लाइट है.
Light,
It's like the
LED का
place where
कारण
I'm
वो हो रहा
sitting,
है.
it's an LED. Yeah. So there is no other source of light.
No worries.
But
We'll be
ठीक है,
sorted
अभी
soon.
चलो.
Guys, if you are in the chat, just drop a hi or any message so that we know you are. So we can start with the topic.
How do I go full screen?
Okay. I think we are live perfectly.
I cannot see the chat, bro. I mean,
Yeah. Chat is not rolling in, but we are of course live. 15 लोग आ चुके हैं. Guys, just drop a hi or something so that we know you guys are here. So we can begin. Vishwam, the new panelist, he'll go first. I'll first give introduction of all the panelists so that everybody has context of it. Beginning with the introduction, we have first the panel of earlier ones, just two replacement. One, there is Pratyush. Pratyush is in OPG in the law. He is a law student. Second, we have Manush. Manush Bhai is in Gujarat National Law University. We have Devesh Mishra. He is in HNLU. It is in Raipur. We have Shivjani. He is in Nirma Law University, ILNU. Then we have Vishwam. He is a psychology student in St. Xavier's. Then we had Ayush, but Ayush is under the weather, so he will not be attending. But he has sent his points to us, so I'll be reading that later on. Okay, that is the panel, and we will be discussing on the recent incident. Not more on that, but we'll be discussing on what can be done to avoid those incidents. What can be done? What changes does the law need with which we can improve the situation and not make it happen again? That is a constructive thing that we're gonna do here, and we will first begin with Vishwam's point of view. Vishwam, are you ready, brother? So
Yes.
perfect. Okay, I'll stop sharing the screen, and yes, you can go now. Go ahead.
So first of all, thank you for having me on this panel, and I would like to express my solidarity with the victims of this sexual assault all over the world and especially in India right now. But if we want to solve this problem of sexual assaults on women and children and people in general, we need to stop seeing the idea of rape that it is always directed towards a particular gender or a sex. Rape is any kind of sexual assault on a person. Let's remove the lens of binary gender things from our perspective. So if we talk about the BNS sections in here, first of many things I disagree with is the wording of the section, which is the chapter 5 of offenses against women and child. If we want to really stop the problem of rapes, then we should understand that it is not only directed towards women and children; it is against people. So secondly, when we say that a man is said to commit rape if he, and there is sections given. So when we see that a man can only perform a rape or can only do that, it is utterly wrong, because there are several cases of male rapes in our country and the world. एंड मैनी पीपल से कि हमको दिखाई नहीं देता मेल रेप केसेस. अरे भाई कैसे दिखेगा? मेल रेप केसेस के लिए कोई लीगल प्रोविजंस ही नहीं है कोई भी लॉ में. So when we say that a male or a man commits rape, it is discriminatory against males who also face this heinous crimes. So first of all, I would say that Article 377 जो decriminalized हुआ था, तो उसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये रूल दिया था कि कंसेंशुअल सेक्सुअल रिलेशंस वर डिक्रिमिनलाइज्ड. बट इफ वी सी रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली, then some sections of the Article 377 can be used as a means of providing justice to the male victims of these rape cases, because it is the sexual relations or sexual intercourse against the order of nature. So first of all, I think that the uninclusion of male rapists or victims, male victims of the rapes, is discriminatory. And secondly, I think that the exemptions given, the exemption two for better clarity, is sexual intercourse or sexual acts by a man with his own wife. The wife not being under 18 years of age is not rape. So what this exemption sounds like is the man is the owner of the wife. The husband is the owner of the wife, and he can do whatever he wants against the will and consent of his wife or his partner if he wants. So अगर हम देखें कि रेप की जो डेफिनेशन और जो कंडीशंस प्रोवाइड की है बीएनएस की वही यही सेक्शन में, तो उनके पहले दो सेक्शंस है अगेंस्ट हर विल एंड विदाउट हर कंसेंट. So when we give this exemption कि sexual intercourse by a man with his own wife, we can say हम उसको नजरअंदाज कर रहे हैं वो टॉपिक को, कि अगर वाइफ की विल नहीं है या वाइफ को कंसेंट नहीं है और फिर भी इफ द हस्बैंड फोर्सेस हिमसेल्फ अपॉन हर, then it is not a crime. This is against the discrimination against several lakhs and thousands of women who are afraid to speak up because there is no provision for them in this BNS new sections.
Okay.
And third, we can say that why corrective rape has not been included in this BNS sections. For people who may not know what corrective rape is, so corrective rapes are something I would say are directed towards the members of LGBTQI++ community in order to cure them of the sickness of homosexuality. It is a very regressive practice. Mostly it is observed in Indian, less developed parts of India, Africa, even Europe.
Please conclude.
Yes, so when we say that this corrective rape, the marital rapes, and these all are not included in the BNS sections, it is fundamentally discriminatory, and it does not we can say address the whole idea of sexual assault. So if we really want to solve the problems of sexual assaults, we need to understand that there is not only one kind of sexual assault that is directed towards one gender. There are many types of sexual assaults, and it needs to be addressed right now.
Okay, to summarize your points, firstly, you said that there was a removal of gender quotation. So women and child were the only one that were put forward in the whole section, rightfully so. And in 63 to 73, it was just that particular chapter, chapter 5. Then male rape were not even considered. Then after, the husband and the relation of married rape, marital rape were not at all addressed in the whole section. And the meaning of the definition of the particular act has been changed. That those were the summaries. One of the point was very similar to what Ayush gave. It was pointing out to the section 377 when removal of that when it shifted from IPC to BNS. Any questions from the panel to Vishwam's point? Anything, guys? Yes, Devesh, go ahead.
Okay, coming to the concept of corrective rapes. Now, oftentimes, now the general understanding in criminal law is that only a man can rape a woman. There is no other stakeholders. A woman can't rape a woman, a man can't rape a man, and a woman can't rape a man. This is the general understanding. Since most of the times this has a a very straight element. For example, if it's a gay man, it is usually that they are partnered up with a male, a straight woman, and vice versa. So in this case, if let's say a legislation were to be created, how do you think we can adequately address this from a heterosexual homosexual perspective. My bad.
Okay.
So, if so homosexual perspective से हमको कैसे हम इसको एड्रेस कर सकते हैं? So first of all, as the Supreme Court rightly decriminalized the sexual relations between homosexual couples, so I think कि recognition भी उनको मिलना चाहिए सबसे पहले, क्योंकि अभी क्या होता है कि जो करेक्टिव रेप्स और जो होते हैं, they are mostly committed by family members or some or the other closely related relatives. So when we want to address this issue, ये इश्यू आता है कि सोसाइटी हमको कैसे परसीव करेगी, कि परिवार में ही ये सब हो रहा है, क्योंकि अभी हम आई वुड से दिस वेरी ओपनली कि अभी इंडियन सोसाइटी उतनी मैच्योर नहीं हुई है कि पेरेंट्स ओपनली जाके सोसाइटी में डिक्लेयर कर सके कि मेरा बेटा LGBTQII+ कम्युनिटी का हिस्सा है. सो सबसे पहले तो हमको वो सोशल जो स्टिग्मा है अगेंस्ट द LGBTQI कम्युनिटी, वो हमको रिमूव करना पड़ेगा बाय अवेयरनेस, बाय एजुकेशन, बाय लीगलाइजिंग देयर consensual relationships. So if first of all this social attitude is formed in favor of the LGBTQI community, then I think कि better way में हम उसको address कर पाएंगे ये corrective rape के issues को.
Yes, and I'm not sure if it will happen at all, because 377 का removal उनका acceptance का मतलब नहीं होता ना.
हाँ,
That
वही.
is something that our government has not yet been clear on. But yeah, very good points, I think, in terms of the sections available. Who would like to go next? I think Pratyush, you want to go right now?
Yeah, I think I'll go
Let's
next.
let's plus let Devesh go, and then after you. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay, Devesh,
perfect.
go ahead, sir.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to primarily go upon the point of definitions that have been given in specifically in the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, because the primary contention related to that legislation was around if it will be a progressive legislation looking at criminal law from a liberal perspective, or will they still stick to the conservative perspectives, because the premise of changing criminal laws was that it will be anti-colonial and it will be done with the draconian laws that were set back centuries ago. Now,
Okay. Yes.
the section of rape, the section 63 begins with a man is said to commit rape, which puts up an idea that a woman by any means whatsoever cannot commit rape. Okay, mind you. Now, adding on to this also means that, and when you talk about look at the other sections, it only and only focuses on women, which establishes another premise that a woman is the only possible victim in the cases of rape, not a man, which means any person technically speaking does not have post the age of 18, because POXO applies for the younger ones, but post the age of 18, no person who has XY chromosomes has any sorts of legal protection under law for against rape, right? At least not explicitly. Now, coming on to a very big problem, what I fail to understand is that the distinction between why there is death penalty only and only for gang rapes, and there is also death penalty for, I believe, repeat offenders. Why is it that it is not for the first time as well? Because there is one thing clear: rape is not something that happens without choice. Rape is a choice. You have a choice to commit a crime or not. Okay, and the excuse given to not give death penalty is the fact that the general understanding is that if you attach death penalty to the crime of rape, it motivates the killer, the rapist, to further murder the victim. However, how many times have we seen, and we see it often, that people end up murdering the victim? Hence, what we need to weigh, there is a balance which hasn't been weighed out yet as to are you really willing to take this hypothetical risk that a person will be murdered, or do you want a stringent and adequate punishment to address the problem, right?
Okay.
And coming on to my last point, crime has historically been taken in context of how much it affects the society. And on a personal note, I believe that especially in a culture like that of India, terrorism, murder, or even major corruption scams have not affected the society so much so as rape has done. Because I've been posting about this on my stories as well, that there was this lovely saying that पता नहीं किसने हमारे हाथ में मोमबत्तियां थमा दी, क्योंकि
Yeah.
हमें तो नारी के
सम्मान
असम्मान
में।
करने पे आग लगाने सिखाया जाता था, ठीक है.
Yeah.
So that is something that you need to know, that the society gets very aggravated whenever such things happen. Hence, the law has not been adequate in looking at what the adequate punishment should be for rape, and the definition is outright problematic. It is outright problematic, does not consider a specific section of the society,
Okay.
which is
Specific to the punishment, what would you suggest should be the punishment? Like, is capital punishment really, like, for the punishment cause it is really good, but when it comes to linking it with the problem, often it is said that capital punishment will not lead to decrease in problem at all.
exactly. So whenever you look at any sorts of penal element in law, it is not for punishment, or it is a corrective measure. It is to rehabilitate the person who has been deviant from the social norms. Okay, this is a pure academic point. But on the other hand, there is a common understanding that punishment needs to be in a way that a person is scared of committing a crime. Okay, the motivation to commit the crime it exists in a some sort of whatever pleasure they achieve in committing the crime, but there has to be a negative to committing the crime, which is
Okay.
much heavier than this pleasure or this incentive
And
they are
that will
achieving via
stop
committing.
the crime in itself.
It will not, it will never, but it will surely decrease it. The stoppage of it is via
Okay.
the means of education and awareness. That is
Okay,
a very
one more
clear
question
point.
that I have
Uh,
for this particular
even
topic.
one
Sorry,
question.
Manush.
Even
Just
one
before you.
question. If I
Yes.
yeah,
Let me post one question and then I'm so
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. So specific to punishments, there have been more cases of family themselves involving in this particular crime. If that is the case, and the capital punishment and severe punishment is being provided to the particular criminal, then would that not decrease the number of reports that are being registered when it comes to inner family crimes or such? Because they'll feel like their own family member will face such severe punishments, and so that will lead to them suppressing the report.
Okay, so this happens a lot. Okay, and just to clarify it, right, there is the running dark joke that everybody's first time is their uncle. But apart from that, the reality is that oftentimes it is the family members that are very violative of a person's, of a person's sexual modesty, be it male or female. And oftentimes this goes unreported. There
Yeah.
have been a lot of people who I know of personally who have been assaulted by their family members and they could have done nothing about it. So either wise, however strict the punishment is, it is not really about the consequences the people suffer. It is rather about they themselves culpritizing themselves कि क्या मैंने ही कुछ गलत किया था. Okay, maybe I was the wrong. Okay,
Okay.
that is the
Okay.
contention as to why these go unreported, and वो परिवार की इज्जत बचाने वाला point आ जाता है. ठीक है.
Yes. Shiv, you have question to this particular point?
I just have a
I
question
had a
on Devesh's
question.
speech. Just a small question. Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
please.
Manush could go first, or I could go
Yes,
first.
Manush, go ahead
Yes,
with the
yeah.
question.
Okay. So Devesh, I would like to ask you this, since we follow the Indian penal system has been following a lot of trends of a form of justice which is not of retributive nature. It is more of like reformative nature. Induct back the criminal into the society again.
Yeah,
But
rehabilitation.
yeah, but then the question here again is, uh, can the crime and the gravity and the veracity of the crime and its impact be an apparatus rather than human resonance being its own motive, that he's also human at the end of the day. The person who was victim is also human at the end of the day. He needs to be inducted back into the society. The question here is, in a lot of crimes that you see, there is an element which keeps on sort of there may be an element which keeps on sort of motivating the person to do this. ठीक है, there is an element of revenge, vengeance. There's an element of an ulterior motivation that is coming out. But in rape, the only motive of a person is to assault another person so violently and so
Yes, to show
voraciously.
power.
Yeah, to show power, to basically exert vengeance upon that person's dignity altogether, like taking away the autonomy. I won't be calling it properly izzat utar dena. I'll be coming it to the point when I address it in my speech. But I would say to, force yourself on someone else's consent, and to shake up the dignity and the consent of a person. The question here is, why cannot we classify rape altogether as a different offense? And why do we need to follow some sort of reformative justice and not retributive in this nature? Because the rapist still has a choice.
Very good point. There should be a separate law enforcement agency also for this particular thing. Very good point. Yes,
That is different. That is
That is a very
executive.
nuanced
But
thing.
yeah,
Okay,
Yes,
so just to summarize your point, your question. So, firstly, I would like to go upon your premise, right? To address it in a short manner, the Izzat premise thing. I really don't believe that is the only and only aspect of it. For example, because rape itself, consent, the primary aspect of rape is consent. Consent अकेला चीज है जो rape determine करता है कि rape है कि नहीं. Okay, if I look at it from a tunnel vision, correct. So consent itself is a very gray area. For example, if I am intoxicated and so is another person, and we indulge into any sorts of sexual activities, general understanding is that in a state of intoxication, तुम कितना भी voluntary consent दो, it will not be valid. Correct? Does that necessarily amount to rape? That is a big question. But did I have any sort of vengeance against that person, or was my mens rea is, for the non-legal people, it is the mental element of a crime. Okay, did I want to commit the crime? So
Malicious
was my
intent.
mens rea?
yes.
Exactly. So was my mens rea to to outrage the dignity or the modesty of the person, right? That is a very questionable aspect of it, right? So there are a lot of aspects to rape. Now, why am I advocating for capital punishment but not as an absolute measure? कि मतलब हर rape में capital punishment तो नहीं होना चाहिए. It is only in the rarest of the rarest cases. Capital punishment का पहला concept ही है कि it has to be given in the rarest of rarest cases. Okay. So if there is, the primary aspect of it is corrective, but if a crime has been committed to an extent wherein there is no scope of correction visible in the person, biggest example is Nirbhaya case mein. You can look at one of the accused guilty people ka interviews, wherein he is still advocating for the fact that women wear short clothes, roam around at night,
Yes.
and basically is talking about that they're all asking for that point, right? This person, after he's been shamed by an entire nation of 1 billion people, and the globe has spat on his image, this person still stands strong to his point.
Yes.
Do you
And he
really
still
think
says
there is
that Tali
any
ek
scope
saath
of
se nahi
correction
bajti.
in this
That
person?
is how the level of mindset that they have. True. Very
Exactly.
true. And there are
Sneh, I
provisions in
also have a
the
question.
I
Yes.
just I have a
Will come
point
to
to I have a point to what Devesh said. I mean, on dignity itself
Yes.
and
Please keep it
dignity and
short.
everything.
Please.
Yeah. So the point is that there is also the outrage in the recent case is also coming from the fact that it was a doctor, and there were none of these excuses that certain filthy sections of our society use, that she was wearing, or the circumstance. You blame the circumstance instead of the accused. You blame the victim instead of the victim blaming, right? But that is not possible in this case, and that is, I think, a very big reason for the outrage also that we are seeing in this case, because there is no question about the victim. You cannot question the victim.
You cannot.
Technically, she is living the dream of every single parent. All parents want their daughters to be doctors, right?
Yeah.
But if becoming an accomplished doctor wearing that white coat and that stethoscope every morning also leads you to an unsafe place,
Yes.
so that element is also present.
Okay, Vishwam, you had a question on this.
यस मेरा एक पॉइंट था देवेश जी के स्पीच पे कि जो विल और कंसेंट का था, तो इसके लिए भी हमको एक डीपर क्वेश्चन में जाना पड़ेगा कि विदाउट और विल और विदाउट हर कंसेंट के बीच का डिफरेंस क्या है. बिकॉज अगेंस्ट द विल जो है वो तो हमेशा कंसेंट के बिना ही होगा, लेकिन उसका वाइस वर्सा नहीं हो पाएगा. सो वी हैव टू डिफरेंशिएट दैट व्हाट इज अगेंस्ट हर विल एंड व्हाट इज अगेंस्ट हर कंसेंट to eradicate this problem. And on the point that Pratyush made कि circumstance वाला, कि in the same state of West Bengal 6 महीने भी नहीं हुए संदेश खाली में इंसिडेंट्स हुए थे, बट उसमें इतना ज्यादा आउटरीच नहीं हुआ. लेकिन कोलकाता में जो हुआ उसकी वजह से जो आउटरीच हुआ वो पूरा देश देख रहा है. सो माय क्वेश्चन इज कि सोसाइटी डिफरेंशिएट क्यों कर रही है दो सर्कमस्टेंसेस के बीच में, जो सेम हीनियसिटी के थे, सेम इंटेंसिटी के थे
Yes.
और सेम स्टेट में थे
And
इवन।
फिर कैपिटल पनिशमेंट उसे ही दिया जाएगा जिसका इंसिडेंट ज्यादा वायरल जाएगा. That would be the
Exactly.
case later on.
So we
Very
don't.
good problem.
Yes,
So we don't
agreed.
want. एक minute. Just let me complete. So my appeal is कि सोशल मीडिया के कारण कोई भी केस का जो जस्टिस होगा ना, उसको इन्फ्लुएंस मत होने दो. बिकॉज व्हाट हैपेंस इन दिस सोशल मीडिया इज कि जिसका इंसिडेंट वायरल गया उसको ज्यादा सिंपैथी मिलेगी, while संदेश खाली के victims are still struggling for this justice, going to courts and back.
Yes, yes, true.
There is this lovely Akshay Khanna movie called Section 375 जिसमें एक ऐसा ही सिनेरियो दिया गया है. If anyone has seen it, basically
Yes,
proof पूरा दिया जाता है and the person is not guilty, but because of public pressures the judges decide. And this poses a very genuine question कि does this actually happen in our legal system, that because of public pressure judges are scared to rule, and because this is something even D.Y. Chandrachud has talked about, that oftentimes lower courts में judges are pressurized by a lot of elements which might not even be coercive or political elements, but they're intrinsic voices in their head, because as a judge you have too much to deal with internally. And I would like to mention this one point, Sneh, just to conclude.
Yes,
about
please, keep it
consent. Consent can be of two types. Okay, yes until I say no, or no until I say yes. Okay. And the necessarily not express nature, मतलब मैं verbally ना बोलूं कि oh I wish to indulge into intercourse, it is not until that point. Okay, it is unless and until I display disagreement. And oftentimes the problem with that is a very messed up concept. I mean, I cannot fathom as to how problematic it is that I have to say no. It is supposed to be implicit that it is no until I say yes. It should be the other way, but our legal understanding says that it is yes until you say no.
Yes. Okay. One chat that I want to address before we go to Pratyush's point. One of the chat said that discussion is running on a very false premise that criminal laws are supposed to be primarily protect the victim, with the accused rights being irrelevant. That is the point mentioned. But I think this is what we want to change with this particular discussion. That is why we are here. The BNS is the one that is going in this particular direction, not the discussion. The discussion is happening in that particular direction because we want to change this thing. Even if you read those particular clauses, it's specifically talking about the accused and not the victim. The punishment are only drafted on the basis of accused, not the victim. कि अगर वो public service वाला आदमी हुआ तो उसके लिए ये सजा होगी, उसके लिए वो सजा होगी, लेकिन victim के बारे में बात ही नहीं होगी. That is where the important part.
Sneh, if you want to address this, let me address this chat in a very quick manner. If you want to see how a criminal code works, if you want to rehabilitate the person, see now what happens is crime हो गया. If I'm a victim, मेरे साथ जो होना था वो हो चुका है. आगे की जर्नी जो है वो लॉ मेरे साथ डील नहीं करेगा, लॉ करेगा alleged इंसान के साथ. फिर उसके लिए ही आपको सब्सटेंशियल कोड पे जाना पड़ेगा, जो अर्स्टवाइल आईपीसी था और अभी बीएनएस है. अब ये भाई साहब या ये बहन जी जो भी हैं, इनके चैट का जवाब, ये फॉल्स प्रीमाइस नहीं है. यू विल हैव टू गो टू सीआरपीसी और बीएनएस. Yes, you will have to go to the procedure code, that how the law deals with the victim. The law cannot in substance deal with the victim. It will deal with the culprit or the alleged offender. That is why the law is made.
True.
So it is not a false premise.
Yes, Pratyush, go ahead.
First of all, completely agree with Manush. Now, second of all, I think so obviously provisions have their faults completely, but I think the issue is a lot more systemic in the way that we are looking at this crime in the first place. So the problem is that the offenses, the punishments, the provisions, they are gender specific, as is already pointed out. They're heteronormative, as is already pointed out. Also, they do not consider, or they are not part of a context of socio-economic issues that lead to rape itself. And there's a very clear distinction. There is a so if you look at it, it feels like a different reality. Everything is very black and white. And the courts are also known for implementing these laws in a very legalistic way. Like they look at every word, they interpret the case, they go to very small details. Of course, in certain cases, it's very necessary. But I mean, there's this letter by Professor Upendra Bakshi to the then Chief Justice of India in 1979. I would request everyone to read it. It's very good, and he talks about it as well, that you can't be this legalistic. Now, of course, he agreed that he feels like a child in saying this, but some part of what he's saying is necessary. That realism is necessary.
Yeah.
Secondly, when I say that it is purely systematic, is because now it is no more about awareness, that oh, people don't know.
Yeah.
It is no more about the punishment or the offenses. It's not about a change that you can make on a pen and paper. I mean, technically, it was never about that. But especially now, we need reform in a category other than a change in the law, other than another commission headed by a retired judge that will look
True.
into such
Very true.
things. Like, we don't need these repeated things. And the other thing is, as I think Vishwam pointed out, it a lot of selective outrage happens on the same day as the recent unfortunate case. There was another case where a poor Dalit girl was also, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
raped. But I'm not saying why are you not, how can you not outrage about this? No. But I'm saying that this selective outrage is causing the government to act in short term goals. Right? They
Yeah.
will make some retired justice of the Supreme Court, put him up. He will recommend certain things. 20 years on, maybe they'll be implemented, maybe they won't be implemented. But that is not the route that we need to take in reform. I don't know what the route is, but it is definitely not the ones that we have done before. Because, I mean, on a different note as well, it is hard to imagine what could be a bigger protest than Nirbhaya, right? For something like this. But things are not changing. And at the end of the day, I think the time is not Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, it's Beti Bachao, Beta Padhao. And that's
Yes.
the only
True.
way we should
Very
go
true.
about it.
Very true. Very true. Okay. Any questions to his particular point? I don't think so. There should be. I think we all agree to his points, and I think we all really wanted to say that, but he articulated it well. Banush, you want to go next?
I mean, okay, if Shiv's internet connection is stable right now, let him go first.
Shiv bhai, if you can. Go ahead, sir. I don't think we can hear him. Can we? No, sir. We cannot
No,
hear you.
no, I think we cannot. It casts a doubt on myself also कि भाई मेरा ही खराब चल रहा है या सबके
No,
साथ
no.
ऐसा है.
Your internet is good. Go ahead, sir. You go.
Uh,
It's okay. Then you can rejoin if you want to. Till that, Manush, you can go.
yeah, so it's really sad to, in fact, have this another incident yet one joined in the books, and then it will be, potentially it is a problematic incident. It is essentially creating a lot of havoc right now. But for that matter, I would say that this mass hysteria that has been formed is a very helpful notion now, because now that the laws have passed, now I'm not in a way celebrating. In no ways I'm celebrating any incident of that unfortunate sort, but the question is, people now will read about it. The people will go to the books back and they'll say, no, this was not the criminal code we wanted for. ठीक है.
Exactly. Very true.
More foolish thing, they voted for the same government. If they didn't want these laws to be passed properly, if they didn't want, they could have simply chose another government. But this government gave a notification of July 1, which was certainly after the election results. The problem with this government or erstwhile whole lawmaking body I can see collect is, first, there is a gratification of a gender by putting one gender either on a pedestal level or a level of like an iconification, or like an ideal dignity ki murat of the family, or downtrod it to the extent that you just want to protect your dignity and you don't care about the person. So and that is happening only to people of one gender. That is the more problematic concept. that you invest and put all of your notions of dignity into one person in the family, or one gendered people in the family. Second, and out of which people have this notion that we say that dignity, okay, let me violate this person's dignity. I mean, rape does not happen if a person, there are a lot of cases where a person does not have a personal vengeance, but like a generational vengeance or vengeance from the family, but then that whole vengeance comes down to a person's women members family or something sort of that, a member of the family who happens to be a woman. And that is why, so as you rest your dignity inside that person of that person, I'll start violating your dignity by violating the person altogether. Okay, violating the person's consent sexually, I'll just assault that person, and your dignity is now sort of stifled in the eyes of the people. So there's a lot of gratification of one gender altogether, which needs to change. That you do not have to entrust your dignity in people's genitals. Okay, I mean, they have a specific purpose. A dignity, your dignity and a person's dignity is much more than a person's sexual character. So we need not symbolize or embellize that that the sexual character of a person shows its purity or dignity. The notion has to go, first thing. Second thing, the jurisprudence that we follow is very problematic in certain cases. In criminal code we follow, and lot of times it is proven that it should be followed, is a positivist school of jurisprudence, which says take the law as it is.
Yes, very good point.
You need to take the law as it is written down. A judge need not apply his legal mind. That is where Pratyush's argument becomes relevant when he gives
Exactly.
the reference of Professor Bakshi and his discourse with the then CJ. He talks about this, saying that you need to apply your legal real mind rather than just being a positivist person reading the black letter of law and applying it as it is. That is why in lot of cases even bails are not granted. Okay, the Supreme Court has to come in between, intervene and say no, this might be the law, but you need to apply your rational mind. Your judicial mind needs to be applied. That is why you are in a judicial position. So the judges need to be reminded of their power again and again, especially at the trial levels.
Yes.
So that is also a problem. That is also a facet of the problem which needs to be solved. Third, the court, coming to the law, the court or the judicial mind, even if tries to apply, the government has ended the scope. Sadly, the government has ended the scope of application of judicial mind. Coming to Devesh's point that why there is no capital punishment, I feel the capital punishment clause would have added in an option like life imprisonment or 10 years of imprisonment, life imprisonment, or death penalty. It could have been an addendum or an optional thing for the court. So it would have been like, let the court decide the veracity of the offense. Let the court decide on the merits, because it is a criminal, because it is a criminal matter which will be led by facts primarily and not by the law. Let the courts decide on the merits, what is relevant and what is the appropriate judgment for this particular case per se. Now let's differentiate. A person with I'm not specifying now the genders of both the victims and the culprit, but let's just have this. Let's just have this. There are two people. A rape is committed by one on the other, but the alleged culprit here is also a minor. In second case, the culprit is major, is very much aware of the consequences of the acts that he is doing. Now, according to the positivist jurisprudence that we follow, and according to the law that is given, a court now is bound to try both of them and give them life imprisonment. But can the court be little bit welfareist in first case and say, look, this can be a problematic instance for both of them, but maybe taking into merits, the court might be not harsh on the a minor, but can deal with the major because he knows the consequences very differently. The age of mature. Now, it might look very problematic when I say that both of them are different, but yes, criminal psychology does work like that. That how much a person's mind is developed, how strong the person's mens rea is. So these are the problems that this law fails to address.
Okay. Yes, Pratyush, question.
Yeah. So actually, it's not particularly a question. At the risk of going somewhat like
Please,
Amol
then
sir
try to
on,
keep it short.
yeah, somewhat like Amol sir. But I read Rabindranath Tagore last semester for my sociology subject, and so he explains where this notion of dignity comes from. So this notion of dignity that Manush also talks about comes from the fact that in our gendered society, that is, we look at society and social objects through genders,
Okay.
prism of genders. There are our genders, the gender, the male gender and the female gender are separated into two halves: the materialistic and the spiritual. The male gender denotes the materialistic, and the female gender denotes the spiritual. And the way this goes about is that spiritual is where your home is, and materialistic is obviously your material, where you go to work, so and so, where you make your money, where you have your food. Now, the reason this distinction comes in, I'll give you an example. During the
Please keep it
colonial
short, sir.
times,
Please keep it
yeah,
short.
I'm sorry. It's just during the colonial times, we saw that we were materially completely outmatched, right? But our spiritual world was untouched. So our national leaders of nationalism started saying that you develop materialistically and preserve your spirituality. And the only way to do that was the rebirth of a woman that we see in a spiritual sense, in the sense of showing the of keeping the honor of the house, being the spiritual harbor of the house. That is how she started being interpreted, and that is what made us distinctive from our colonizers. This is just an example that also Tagore uses, and that transcends to this point as well, of what Manush said, on the fact that our material world you can attack, you can demolish, we can build it back up, doesn't matter. But the spiritual world, the moment you attack and you demolish, quote unquote demolish, then it can't be rebought, right?
True.
And that is the concept.
Okay, perfect. Yes, Devesh, go ahead with the question. I'll come to you, Vishwam, next.
It's not a question, but something I really wanted to address. Add on to
Sir,
Manash's
please
point,
keep it
right?
short if it is
Yeah,
not a
it's
question.
very short. It's very short. Yeah. So I mean, not rather. Okay, yeah, let's take it onto a question aspect. I really fail to understand what is it with our nation, but it is a very common thing that oftentimes it sounds very insensitive when I phrase it this way. But every decade, our nation needs a Nirbhaya like incident to happen
True.
for us to take cognizance that we need some sort of provision to address something, right? India
True.
always has waited for an atrocity to have a legal reform. We had our ATS formed only and only after 2611. We had fast trial, speedy trials only and only after Nirbhaya. Okay, we had adequate reforms to rape laws only after the commission set post Nirbhaya.
True.
So why is it that constantly we see that we have always needed one such heinous activity to take place? And the question here that I have is, let's say even if such a reform comes post such an activity, is it a will it be a long lived reform, or people lose interest out of these reforms
Devesh,
That
to answer your question, see, I'll tell you how the Indian psyche works. At times we have a population which is much deprived of education and thereby sensitivity of the nature, sensitivity of the nature of the act committed altogether. ठीक है? So for that, the media also does not apply a rationalist mind. It applies an emotional mind because that is what connects all of Indians, right? Even if rational is dead, emotion is never dead in India. Please be very aware of that. Your ration may live or die, but the emotion will always stay afresh. It's like वो राख जो होती है ना, जो वो जम जाती है, पर अगर तुम फूंक मारोगे तो फिर से भड़केगी. So that is what emotion caters to. So, and in an emotional or a sentimental psychology follow करती हुई एक country
Yes.
जो है like
Yes.
India, you need to have emotional triggers. You tell me why Sandesh Khali was not amplified so much. You tell me why there were other cases of such heinous acts. Chalo, if they are not amounting to rape, but there are hundreds of cases registered in an ICC of an organization, why they are not getting the same sort of sympathy that this incident is thankfully getting? The question lies in the question lies in how much amplification of an incident happens, how much emotions are involved into it. So you need to say that if emotion is the key, the law and the jurisprudence needs to be sociological equally, with it being positivist. That
Yes,
is where
okay.
we need to
Okay,
cater.
okay. Vishram,
In
your
fact,
question
to
first.
this, yeah,
Sir, please, very short, sir. Or
yeah,
like let
yeah.
us look at
I
the
just
question.
very shortly, I agree with what Manush is saying, and I would just like to articulate, I think, the point that he's trying to convey a bit more. In that, I think our outrage is somewhat irrelevant, has become somewhat irrelevant because we start blaming the government. I'm not saying the government is blameless, but I am saying that you should introspect, use that anger to introspect into society itself.
True,
You
true.
go ahead, blame the government. Had Rahul Gandhi won the election and
Yes.
become prime minister, I think there would have been absolutely no change on this matter,
True. But I
unfortunately.
think that
So
is something that Mamata Banerjee is doing right now. Like
no, no, no,
it
I'm
it
saying
ends
that
up being that
does
when
not matter.
we
And the
go
other
against the
thing is,
government.
our outrage is also very irrelevant now, particularly, is because before the advent of social media, when the youth outraged,
Yes.
there was a level of change. Now we will put stories every year on anniversary of Nirbhaya, being like never forget, never forgive, so and so. We will
True.
condemn. Our university student councils will send a
True.
condemnation. We will post
Okay.
it on our story. Now it is good. You must do it. But what that does is it waters down the actual outrage into
Yes.
two hyperlinks, right?
Yes.
And those
Yes.
hyperlinks can't do justice to the outrage, but those are the only material proof that the outrage existed. So a binary
Yes.
code of 010 has now become your outrage. How does the why should the government take it seriously when they know for a fact
Amidst
that this is never going to be an issue?
amidst all of this, guys, amidst all of this, let us agree to this very point that still we are living in a heteronormative notion that rapes all of have happened on women only. Like there's a gender which commits rape and there's a gender which
True.
is
True.
perpetually
True.
a victim to rape.
Vishram, go ahead with the
The
question.
whole the
So
whole
sorry, sir.
sexual minority, is left out of the discussion that we are currently having. This is the state of Indian jurisprudence when it comes to rape laws,
True.
guys.
Very true. Very true. Yes, Vishram, go ahead, sir.
Yes. So my question, as Manush bhai mentioned, criminal psychology. So if we see broadly a criminal while committing or after committing a crime has mainly two things in mind कि कितनी strict होगी punishment और अगर मैं पकड़ा जाऊंगा या नहीं. So when we talk about this, so इसमें मेंस रिया जैसे मानुष भाई ने बोला व्हाट इज नॉलेज ऑफ द रॉन्ग डूइंग ड्यूरिंग द क्राइम. So if the person is capable enough intellectually to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong of what he is doing, then why should he be given the opportunity of rehabilitation? If he is intellectually or emotionally he is matured to know कि ये गलत हो रहा है या मैं जो कर रहा हूँ गलत है, तो उसको रिहेबिलिटेशन का चांस क्यों दिया जाए? क्योंकि उसका भी श्योरिटी नहीं होगी कि रिहेबिलिटेशन के बाद भी will he leave that his psychotic traits or not. And secondly, about the emotional aspect of the society, about the outrage and all. So as our Indian society is emotionally vulnerable and we see कि वो भटक जाती है इमोशनल टॉपिक्स पे आके, so that also gives politicians an edge to take the matter of the hooks. जो इमोशनल कार्ड जब पॉलिटिशियंस प्ले करते हैं, वी सॉ ममता बनर्जी प्रोटेस्टिंग अगेंस्ट हर ओन गवर्नमेंट इन वेस्ट बंगाल while she is the chief minister, she is the health minister, and she is the home minister. So what happens in this case is by triggering emotional centers of the people or triggering people emotionally against a crime, पॉलिटिशियंस जनरली डू इज वो ध्यान भटका देते क्राइम से, वो ध्यान भटका देते अपनी गवर्नमेंट की इनकॉम्पेटिबिलिटी से, कि वो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर मेंटेन करने में विफल गई है, वो कुछ भी करे वो
True.
कुछ कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रही है अभी. सो दैट्स माय पॉइंट.
Okay, okay. I think we agree to this point that we know the answer to this particular point, right? Okay. Shiv, you can turn your like phone to auto
Hello.
rotate if that is
Am
possible.
I audible?
You are audible,
Yes.
sir. You are perfectly audible.
Perfect. Finally. Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Firstly, I'd be starting my speech right off the bat with saying that firstly, I express extreme solidarity for those who are concerned, those who are the victims, those who are bereaved, because there have been several cases in the country which have shaken the nation and taken the nation by storm. So, firstly, extreme solidarity towards the victims as well as their families, towards all the survivors as well. I'd like to start with a quote of Gandhiji which says, "The day that a woman can walk freely on the roads at night, that day we can say that India is truly independent." I think this is the kind of utopia that we strive to achieve with the jurisprudence of rape. This is the kind of utopia that we try to reach with the laws that we make. And this is the ever elusive utopia that we possibly can never reach. The NCRB data suggests that 86 rapes take place in India on a daily basis. So I think there needs to be something groundbreaking, but there also needs to be an introspection in the current existing laws. Because what the dilemma here is that rape is an accusation which can very easily be made.
Hmm.
It is hard to be proved and even harder to be defended by the party accused, though they are never so innocent.
True.
So when we say that when we say that the punishment of rape deserves an omnibus opprobrium, we also need to introspect into the fact that the severity of the punishment is also so much that it can shake the life of a person who is even as much as involved in a case that is about rape. There was a recent judgment in 2019 which was Ravi Shankar versus the state of MP, which said that circumstantial evidence cannot work in a rape case. You need ocular evidence, that any lack of ocular evidence, even if case is proved, it does not work. What you need to do for rape cases is that there needs to be proof beyond reasonable doubt, and in order to do that you need to have conclusive evidence against the perpetrator. And I think due to the severity of the offense, there also needs to be a certain amount of leeway that needs to be given, in the fact that even if 1000 guilty people can go free, one innocent should not be wrongly accused in any crime. I
Yes.
think that is the
Very
basic jurisprudence on which this works. And even though there might be outrage right now, even though there might be protests, we all are deeply shaken by this. Because what the current mentality here, as Pratyush very rightly mentioned, that beti padhao, or beti bachao or beta padhao. So that mentality is very right, because when we heard the interview of the Nirbhaya perpetrators, what he said was no decent woman would roam beyond 9 p.m. at night. So what needs to be done is that there needs to be a significant role of education here.
yes.
If a woman is asking for it, she can just ask for it. So education plays an absolutely important role here. Then we also look into the idea of how only men can be perpetrators and only women can be sufferers. I think I need to bring a little neutrality into this debate when we say that, okay, let's look at it from utilitarianism versus deontology. Deontology would say that there needs to be equality
Hmm.
amongst everybody, and that even males can be
Yes.
sufferers and women can be
Yes.
perpetrators. But when we look at it from a utilitarian standpoint, which says, it needs to apply to the most number of people here. What we need to understand here is that how many rape cases are being registered against men who are suffering rape. Okay, there is a societal stigma. Okay, they are not okay, they are still happening. But for them to be legislated into a law, there needs to be a significant shaking up in the country. And I think that is what is also wrong, that once there is a huge incident, once there is a massive incident, only then is this uproar happening.
Yes.
What happened in Nirbhaya in 2013? When the Nirbhaya case happened, the only provision, which was the archaic provision and definition of rape which had been given, was that only penile insertion into the vagina is constituted as rape. Now, what Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is doing is that in subsection A, it talks about the penetration of the penis into 4 different areas. Please consider this from a strictly academic standpoint and do not think of
Yes,
it as anything
yes,
vulgar to the audience.
no problem.
So, subsection A of section 63 of the BNS talks about
Yes,
penetration of the penis into the vagina, mouth, or urethra or anus of a woman. Subsection B talks about insertion of any part of the body which is
any
not the
object
penis
or
or
any part.
any other object.
Yes,
Subsection C talks about manipulation, and subsection D talks about the application of the mouth.
mouth.
So
Yes,
these rape cases like Nirbhaya and the rape case at the RG Kar Medical College, they are absolutely unnatural. They did not just insert a penis into a vagina, they absolutely mutilated the victim. And I
true.
think these are some of the rarest of the rare cases, as Devesh mentioned, that death penalty in rape cases can only be given in rarest of rare cases. And I think this is one such cases where the mentality of the perpetrators was such that it was of a nature hitherto unthinkable and undreamt of. So I
Yes,
think that this needs to be dealt with a special provision, while also making sure that those who are accused in this are treated in such a way that their accusation is proved beyond a reasonable doubt and nobody is wrongly convicted also needs to be
true,
ensured.
true.
Thank you.
Sound it
Yeah.
looks BNS looks like something drafted by ChatGPT more than anything, and we only read it now. Like that is
It's
the
not
surprising thing.
even
It got
Sneh, it's
noticed
not
It's
even
now
Chat
after a
okay.
GPT.
incident.
It's not even
It-
Chat GPT.
So
At
the
least Chat
initial draft
GPT.
even had
It will give
grammatical
some sense.
mistakes.
Yes, ChatGPT भी इतना
So,
खराब नहीं लिखता.
No,
but
I
but
mean
no,
Chat
it is
GPT at
more or
least is
less
gender
similar to
neutral.
IPC.
Chat
Exactly.
GPT knows pronouns. Chat GPT knows pronouns.
These
This
are the people.
current government does not acknowledge the pronouns. That's the whole point. I'm
True.
sorry if I'm agitating, but this is all coming from
No, true. Very
like
true.
Yeah.
staying with the people, hearing from their communities that what pain they go through. And let me tell you, Sneh, the pain is immense. Let alone the most respected and revered community of transgenders. Still, they don't. They
Yes,
had a
it's not
protection. They
addressed.
had a they had a protection at least under section 377. Now it is all gone
It's
because
also
they
removed.
cannot claim
Overnight.
justice. They cannot claim justice under even 377 as an unnatural offense that happened against them.
Very true. Very
So
true.
See the
Also, one
problem.
more point that I need to deal with here was that someone in this
Very quick.
panel mentioned that consent is the only point on which rape can be constituted. Consent is not the only provision. I think the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita also caters to the provision of rape happening against the will of the person. Against the will of a person, how does rape happen? It happens when the woman is either intoxicated or
Yes,
someone
that
who
is
is
also addressed.
in relation to that woman, that person is put in danger. So the woman gives the consent, it is against her will. So that is the demarcation that had been made by the Supreme Court, and that demarcation has also been incorporated into the BNS.
Okay,
to
okay.
to just
Before
further just one
before
line,
sir, sir,
Sneh,
sir,
one line.
any points before any points? I want to say something because this time or last time
Any
I haven't
questions
said
for me,
anything.
guys?
Is
No
that okay?
questions.
Let me just go on, like, because I've been angry on this particular thing since a long time, and I had a lot of things to say. Okay, so let me just go on this monologue, because this, you take it as amendments, you take it as suggestion, you take it as letter or whatever you want to, but this is my message to the current government, who I have loved for the longest time, but only hated this time. Okay, you have been one of the worst person to handle this particular thing when it comes to section 64 and clause B, where they are saying completely about public servants and all the other stuff, right? So they are saying that अगर कोई औहदे पे होगा, कोई ट्रस्ट वाले औहदे पे होगा, अगर वो क्राइम कमिट करेगा तो उसको एक्स्ट्रा सजा दी जाएगी, बिकॉज वो 10 ईयर से ज्यादा की सजा दी जाएगी। यार उन लोगों की सेफ्टी के बारे में तो सोचो, उन लोगों की सेफ्टी के बारे में कुछ नहीं किया आपने। जो ट्रस्ट पे बैठे हैं वो लोग खुद सफर कर रहे हैं, गवर्नमेंट जॉब का हवा बना के रखा हुआ है, तो उनकी भी कोई रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है। You have to address that also, that if those public servants, those armed officers, those people who are day and night serving for the society, if they suffer themselves, why are there no severity of punishment there? There is no address of that. So if they do something, they will have to face, because they were in a position of trust. But when in the position of trust they are suffering, then there is no extra cost for anyone. That is the
See,
type of thing which
see.
That is
Listen,
Sir.
Sneh. Listen,
I know
Sneh,
it
this is a
cannot be
very
addressed. I know it cannot be addressed in a BNS or any other.
no, no, no.
laws,
No,
So
but
there
it
is a
has to be
difference.
like
There's
that.
a reasonable differential with it. When you say that, a person on a post or a, public servants doing something, it is almost tantamount, but not equal
Yeah.
to commit a trait against its own nation, because here
Yes.
a part of a state is committing crime against a state. Any crime committed is a crime committed against the state. तो
Yes.
अगर स्टेट खुद के साथ ही क्राइम कमिट करेगा, so there's thing
True.
called agent,
True.
there's an
वो
agent, there's a
रखो.
master
मैं
agent,
उसके बारे
there's
में
a
कुछ नहीं
master.
कह रहा.
Listen,
बहुत
listen,
अच्छी
listen.
चीज
There's
है
a
if they
master
are being
agent.
accountable for their position, but they
Yeah,
also need to
I
be
no, not
protected on that
position,
particular position.
not
I think
position,
to
not
add,
just position,
हाँ,
not
to
just
add to
position.
what
They are telling कि स्टेट को हम रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दे रहे हैं सेफगार्ड करने की. स्टेट इज वायोलेटिंग माय राइट. So a person should know that the impact that post carries.
True.
There's an increased responsibility,
I
because
agree.
now you are the part of the state and
So,
not just the
Sneh,
society.
The
Sneh,
same
Manush,
way
Manush, Sneh.
there is increasing state's responsibility, there should also be state's responsibility to protect itself.
Yeah. So that is where Sneh. Here is the thing. Here's the thing. What Manush is trying to say is that when there is a person in trust and a victim, then
Yeah.
there is a power differentia.
Yes.
The person in trust has more power, right? And the law does encounter fiduciary relationships and with a real authority, right? That's the difference. Now, if it's a normal person and the victim is in a power of trust, you can't have specific sections protecting them because
I agree. I'm not
it
asking
is
for protection.
because
I'm
their
asking for that
relationship is
accountability of
very
the same, sir.
different.
Sir,
So you can't have an
let me give
extra
a simple
cost.
example of the related case itself. Okay, hospitals have been
I
included
think,
in the same public servant term.
हाँ,
Okay,
हाँ,
now when it comes to hospital staff is also included in the same provision, including members as well as staff. What power, position of power does the staff have in terms of hospital? Shouldn't they be protected more than the in charge of hospital or any other public servants? I'm not saying in any particular, because all this were pointed out in such a way, not considering the other way around. If an armed officer is being raped, what are the accountability being done on that?
See,
I
Sneh,
think
a
we are
lot,
comparing apples.
the law takes victims as a victim. Like, regardless of whosoever you are, you will be
I
dealt with
understand
the law.
that must
हाँ,
be
तो
a law
victim का
perspective.
कोई
I am saying there need to be some reform where the victim can also be considered the same way. If we are considering a criminal on the basis of his position, the victim need also be considered on the basis of his
no,
position.
no, no.
No,
Then it
a
would be
victim will never
discrimination on the part.
is not able to
That would be a
exploit their
discrimination on
position,
the
na.
part. That would
As
be
a
on the
You are
discriminative part.
discriminating
कि
on the
भाई
basis of
just
that, but you are
because
not ready to
just
discriminate on the
because I
basis of
am
how will you
no,
protect
no,
the
no.
people
No,
serving
Sneh,
day and night?
Sneh.
This is
You're very
Sneh,
going
Sneh,
different.
just
This
a
is
sec.
going very
I know
Yeah,
it is
different.
going
yeah.
different
Let
because this is
Shiv.
not a
I'll
law's
give it to
perspective.
Shiv.
हाँ,
Then I'll
हाँ.
go forward.
So fiduciary relationship also entails sometimes a pecuniary relationship. When you talk about the inclusion of a fiduciary relationship in a separate light, it means that a woman has a significant degree of firstly trust, and there is also a financial relationship between the woman and the person who is
Yes.
in that kind of a relationship with that woman. Now, this kind of a provision is also there in the Indian Contract Act, where a contract can be void ab initio when there is an undue influence. Like that, this is also a sort of coercive action on the woman where she might not necessarily consent, where she might consent to the act, but that act might be against her will. That is why it is extremely important to deal it in a separate light. When you talk about the hospital staff and management, I think you are comparing apples and oranges, because these are special provisions with regards to different kind of a punishment to rape.
Yes.
This very section also contains rape being committed by a relative, guardian, teacher, or a person or a position of authority towards a woman. And it also talks about certain public servants committing a rape. So
Yes.
it cannot be viewed in an omnibus
I
tunnel vision
understand that.
sort of
I
a
am
way.
not saying, sir, when I'm quoting a law, I'm not saying that the changes must be made to a law. This is a problem that is being existed. The problem is the only thing that I'm highlighting. Right. That is why I said I'm not a lawyer who will point out to think that this needs to be changed this way.
I
Right.
think
But I'm
sometimes the
pointing out
problem
to
is
the
also
problem that
on the
is
level of
existing this.
implementation at
Then
times.
this must also
That
be addressed.
what is happening to the procedural investigative stage? Why was the renovation at Arjikar Medical Hospital being conducted right after the rape had happened? Why
Yes.
was the victim informed that okay, it was suicide, it was not rape, when her
Exactly.
body was absolutely
When the
mutilated
keen
in that
plays a very
hospital?
important
I think
role.
that
When
it
keen
is
plays
a
very
law
important
and
role in
order
fixing
problem, it
criminality.
is a procedural problem. when Mamta Banerjee raises a protest against this kind of a law and order issue that has happened in her state, law and order as well as health both fall in the state list. So after handing over the case to CBI, now Mamta Banerjee raises a protest in her state.
True.
So
Okay,
this is
Vishnu,
an
go ahead.
implementational level that issue that is there.
Just a second, Manoj
Thank you
bhai,
so much.
Vishram has some point. So sorry.
Just a second. Thank you so much to bring all of us just this point that one of the apparatuses to judge the implementation of law is access to justice and knowledge to how much access to justice a victim has. ठीक है तो अब वो भी एड्रेस करना बाकी है दैट हाउ efficient our criminal procedure code, just not BNS but BNSS is also how much efficient it is or how much efficient then CRPC was to address this issue. That is the procedural.
Too long in terms of stream, but yeah, I think that point needs to be addressed. But I think we have very less time. Yes, Vishram, go ahead, sir.
सो जैसे शिव ने बोला कि रिनोवेशन उसके बाद रेप इंसिडेंट के बाद तुरंत चालू किया गया, सो वही एक अनफॉर्चुनेट रियलिटी है इंडिया की कि जब स्टेट को पावर या अथॉरिटी दिया गया है जस्टिस देने का, तो वो नहीं कर रही है, लेकिन जो अक्यूज्ड है उसकी रक्षा करने में वो सारे रिसोर्सेज वो यूज कर रहे हैं. It happened in the renovation case of the Arjikar Medical College. It happened in the Hathras. It happened with the case of Prajwal Revanna. It happened with the case in the regarding Brijbhushan Sharan Singh. So when the system itself is corrupt from top to bottom, how can a singular victim expect justice from this corrupted system? And why wouldn't people demand an overall overhaul of the system itself?
That is the emotion behind my point. Very true. Very true. Yes, Devesh.
Sneh, just to mention one part of your point, अगर एक victim को देख, whenever you look at a culprit from that aspect, you look at how they can exploit their position, but you can never look at a victim from that same position, क्योंकि victim पे एक अलग सा एक बहुत ही tortured type की accountability आ जाती है. For example, अगर मैं एक general person को देखूं, so I will expect them to protest against the rape to a certain extent, right? But let's say if it's a armed professional or if it's like a trained, the biggest example, wrestler's case, you are an armed athlete. अगर मैं उसको instead of a general person या फिर एक normal person की तरह देखूं, I can raise the question, Brijbhushan Sharan Singh तो आम आदमी है. You are a trained athlete who is literally trained since childhood to beat people up. You could have taken substantive action.
Yes.
ये एक बहुत tortured को, it's a very insensitive question.
Yes.
But ये उठेगा अगर तू victim को उस lens से देखेगा. That is the problem via which you cannot see the victim from that perspective. And hospital वाला जो point है ना, I just like to clarify one thing about the hospital point, कि hospital में responsibility होती है on nurses, ward boys, doctors as well. कि you have to take care of the patient. The patient is absolutely vulnerable. चाहे बुखार भी हो, चाहे आदमी की हिलने की हालत नहीं होती. So you are supposed to make sure that उसको कुछ ना हो.
Yes, true.
Okay. So that is why that responsibility comes in. And
I get that. I agree to that. I get that. No worries. Okay. Any other point to be made, or should we conclude? See, chat. At this point, I'd ask you guys to drop any questions if you guys have, so we can.
Sneh, I have a point.
I have the one line point, Vishwam, if you would let me.
Please.
One line point is a quote from a famous stand-up comedian, Veer Das, who very rightly put it that we need to start teaching our boys and men to live with women and not to worship them.
True. Very true. Very true.
It's just one. It's complete rhetoric, but I think very relevant.
Yes. Okay, Visham. Yes, sir.
As Devesh pointed out, कि evidence का tampering हो रहा है. So my point is that section 238 of the BNS deals with exactly this kinds of incident कि evidence tampering है. तो मेरा एक suggestion होगा change का कि जो भी person intentionally change करता है या evidence को tamper करता है, he should be treated equally as the criminal. क्योंकि उसने एविडेंस टेम्पर करके जस्टिस को डिले करने का या तो जस्टिस को डिनाई करने का एक चांस दिया है विक्टिम को और परपेट्रेटर को, दोनों को. सो इफ अ पर्सन इंटेंशनली टेम्पर्स द एविडेंस which may delay or deny justice, he should be treated equally to the criminal and has to be given equal punishment.
Okay, Pratyush, your point to this.
I disagree with Vishwam. I just have one question. So, if I have taken a bribe, right, and say deleted something as heinous as the CCTV footage, right, and I'm caught, My crime is corruption. I can't be punished with life or death or 7 years or 10 years. So
Okay.
what you are saying emotionally again, of course, it makes
Yes.
sense. It's completely immoral. I think it's a lot more immoral than any other type of corruption that you may be able to think about. But when you look at it in a real sense, his crime was pressing delete on a sensitive file and taking 3, 4 lakh, 5 lakh, whatever
Yes.
amount of money
Yes.
for it. So that I think is not something that, and also I don't think that is a realm of the law that we need to dive into. It may need reform, but the
Yes.
reform is required a lot more here, and there's a lot less of it. And
We
we need
want
to.
to say this one thing as
Hmm.
Pratyush, from the side of some non-lawyers people, that when we say that there is a reform required in this particular position, you lawyers interpret it as a direct reform to law. We just are addressing the problem. We don't know how you will interpret it in terms of law. So this was a problem. This was identified in this incident also and some other incident also. How to form
देखो
a law
स्नेह,
is something that
So,
is
so
your.
it's in Manush. I just before you speak,
Yes.
I would also like to pose another question to the panel as well, because in my first speech also I talked about the type
Hmm.
of reform. Sneh has also said the problem is that the easiest material reform that a society sees
Hmm.
is a new law or a preparation of a new law or a
Yes.
compilation of a new law. That is the easiest material change. I
Hmm.
think there needs to be a very different change. I think why can't we have a subject called gender and society, right? As in grade school.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
No, my point is why can't that be mandated? Of course, education is slow to come, whatever. But at least there'll be something more than simple PPTs or posters. We need something more concrete than that, more material than that.
Hmm.
And that's what I
Hmm.
want to take all your like opinions on as well.
True. 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 Of course, we come from that background, so yeah, we have more in terms of that problem statement.
no,
But
but
yes, Manush, you have something.
Sneh, I'll address this very quick. The question that you come up with, that reform for reform per se, like you need the non-law perspective versus the law perspective. So when you need to put the society into motion, you need to look at retrospectively and prospectively as well. So we cannot, so a reform, what would be an instantaneous reform would be to deal with the criminals with an iron hand, not letting them escape. That
Yes.
could be an intrinsic form of reform where there's some sort of righteousness in all of us, which comes out of nowhere, that the incident is so bad that now we all should give up all our boo boos and start anew, afresh, and erase
Hmm.
all our wrongs and begin with a new beginning.
Hmm.
But law does not, law includes this as well, to be very honest, but does
Hmm.
not stop itself at this very scope. Law says to put the society into motion, we need to make sure that every facet of it is covered properly. ठीक है, reform. So how do you put the society into motion? So of course the incident, it is very unfortunate. We all have, we all
Yes,
are
but it
sensitive. You,
cannot be
all of
converted
us,
into laws. Yeah.
it
True.
cannot be converted into per se very much law. Law will say, let's
Yes.
not, let's focus for the better thing, let's make a deterrence out of it, let us
Yes.
aim that this does not happen ever again, and if it happens, so we will punish the person. That is how the legal mindset to put the reform into motion,
Yes.
the machinery works that way.
It can.
So
It
it is a
can be learned
combination.
from, but not implemented to. Right.
Yeah, it cannot be just limited to, learn from,
Yes.
limited to as well. अभी limitation नहीं
Yes.
होता तो you won't be having justice वर्मा report. ठीक है, implementation हुआ, but सिर्फ उस तक सीमित नहीं रहा. That is the sociological school of jurisprudence I was talking again and again about, that this is what a school of law should be.
Hmm.
ठीक
Hmm.
है,
Hmm.
but the criminal law is sadly very much limited to positivism, कि भाई जो लिखा है सिर्फ उसको implement कर कर छोड़ दे ऐसा.
True.
Yeah,
True. Okay.
and Sneh, one more thing on a slightly different topic than just criminal thing on outrage, particularly on where we want. I think a lot of people are not on Twitter and not on Instagram, but on these platforms, the outrage takes everyone is, oh my God, what happened? And then it goes to different stages. And unfortunately, in the last day or two, the stage has been, why isn't Bollywood saying anything? Hey, why isn't this YouTuber? Why isn't this guy? Why
True.
isn't this PUBG YouTuber tweeted anything about?
True.
Arey, that is what is that outrage? I mean, today, I mean, there is no question about it. Today that we have gathered here, it's unnatural. We are all men talking about something which concerns
True.
everyone. So of course we need to be inclusive. But the question then, but then we cannot be interrogated on why we are just men,
Yes. I
right?
mean,
So
he.
the question, no, I'm just saying the question, the interrogation that needs to happen
Hmm.
is is wrong people are being interrogated for wrong issues,
Okay,
right?
okay, no problem. No problem. Okay. I personally feel that if they are holding us accountable, good, it's fine. We will handle that. But yeah,
Of
I
course,
agree to
this
your
is
point. बट या लेट्स टू ऑन एन एंडिंग नोट बस एक रिक्वेस्ट है, जितने भी ऑडियंस मेंबर देख रहे हैं, विक्टिम का नाम कभी भी बाहर मत डालना, आपकी किसी भी स्टोरी या फिर आपका जो भी आउटरेज है, विक्टिम का फोटो या फिर विक्टिम का नाम मत डालना। बहुत ही सिंपल कॉमन सेंस की बात है, लेकिन आजकल हम लोग मिस आउट कर रहे हैं। बस उतनी रिक्वेस्ट है आप लोगों से। बाकी राइट व्हाट यू थिंक अबाउट द होल डिस्कशन इन द कमेंट, इफ यू हैव एनी पर्टिकुलर अदर
Also,
सजेशंस प्लीज
Sneh,
पुट फॉरवर्ड इन द कमेंट। यस सर।
if I'm visible and audible, I just have certain few last remarks to make.
Okay, sir, it's fine. You
Okay,
about to end. Yes, please make it quick.
thank you so much. So, as Pratyush and Manush said, I think I would agree with that. Then, when law is interpreted in a very literal sense, we tend to think of it in a
True.
very linear kind of a way. When what we need to really delve about is the implementational aspect of it, that how exactly is the law which is there in the books being implemented in real life. So that is what needs to be given precedence to. Also, another aspect about the disclosure of identity that is dealt with in section 72 of the IPC.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean BNS. And then talking about one more aspect or tangent into the debate, which is about section 69, which is sexual intercourse by employing deceitful means. Now, this entails a punishment of 10 years.
True.
Again, this was something which was not talked about in this debate. When a person marries a woman with the false promise that he is going to marry that woman, then if he commits any sexual intercourse, even with consent, even with the will of the woman, then that person could be sent into prison for a limit of up to 10 years. Now, some people might argue that this is a very draconian provision, but this is something that has been going on since a very long
Since long
time
time.
as
Yes.
per the judicial precedents. So again, a very open-ended sort of a question that I leave to the entire audience, to the world at large, that is this entire provision, which is not at all gender neutral, really valid? And are the judicial precedents that had been given, are they based on gender neutrality, or are they really necessary
Based on,
based on a
yes.
utilitarian approach? That is the open-ended
True.
question I leave the debate with.
True.
And what I really would stress upon is the implementation of the law, rather than stressing upon too many amendments at this point.
Yes. Okay. With that question note, we would like to end the live stream. Drop any comments if you guys have. You can DM us any time you want, and do follow all the panelists on the Instagram, and do support the initiative.